So, hello and welcome to my best friend and the absolutely amazing goddess human being. I don't actually know how the earth deserves you, but at the moment we do. So, thanking you so much for taking your time to be here with us today, Leanne Maskell. So, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Josie. It's a big honor and a privilege to both be here and to be your friend. So,
Oh my God. Oh, yes, exactly. I think we should
yeah.
just highlight that best friend. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, honestly, as today of this recording, it is Valentine's Day. I thought it would be appropriate that I start out with a bit of a love declaration for you.
Well, thank you. I'm not getting anywhere else. So, yes, go ahead.
So I'm actually just gonna start out just by, and you could close your eyes if you wanted to.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna tell you from my heart to yours. Oh God, I'm getting emotional. Um, you are literally the most beautiful, inside out, magical, genuine, authentic, inspirational, empowering, motivational, inspiring human being that I have ever met, I think. And oh wow, I'm getting really emotional. I just want you to know that it truly is such an incredible pleasure to not only have you in my life, but that you are in the life of so many other people that really needs you at this moment in time. And so and I know that this is also one of your reasons for writing this book, that there are times where life feels really overwhelming. But just know that not only does the world need you to be here for you, but you really are one of those people that have such a great power and such a great influence on so many other people choosing to stick around as well. So, from my heart to yours, this is the love song. This is the love declaration. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Josie, thank you so much. And all of that right back at you. Like, you are the most magical person, literally magical I've ever met in my life. And honestly, like, the podcast is just me and you declaring our love for each other, but you just bring light into the world, and yeah, there is literally nothing in the world I'd prefer to do than chat to you. So thank you so much. You're very kind words. I'm gonna have to play this on repeat every day.
Yeah, no, I listen, I will happily, I'll just like call you up every day and sing it
Thank
along
you.
to you. Yeah, so thank you. And let's get on to why I invited you here today. So not only because you are the amazing human being that you are, but also going back in time a little bit, we will come into talking about your incredible book number 5 that is now coming out. I remember when I interviewed you about book number 3, I think, or something, and that felt like such an immense, incredible achievement. And now here we are, and you've written your book number 5. But let's go back in time a little bit for those unfortunate beings that haven't met you yet.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to quickly remind people how you and I met. So originally, I met Leanne when you came to one of my yoga classes at Shoreditch House, going back a long time now. And it's just beautiful how we can sort of orbit around one another, sort of crisscross in and out of each other's life. And I absolutely noticed you, and I remember saying hello and giving you a smile, and I remember my heart reaching out to you, but we never really had super long, in-depth conversation at that moment in time when we first met at Shoreditch House. It wasn't until years later that one day during COVID, that one morning in a dark, and it wasn't stormy, but it was a dark morning. It was a winter morning. It was a 7 a.m. class in the middle of Suffolk Park that I decided to go to. I'd never been to that studio before. It was nearly late. My bike wasn't working. Anyway, so many things were kind of in the way of me getting to that class. But that morning I woke up and I was like, something in my life has to change. And I don't know what it is, but I'm changing. And so I made that decision to go to that class. And that's when I re-met you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny you say. Well, again, that we're even talking now because when I used to come to your classes at Shoreditch House, that was like such a big part. It was like literally the highlight of my week, and I never would have talked to you because I thought you were so cool. I never thought you'd want to talk to me. So when I saw you again at the yoga class, and it was one of those moments that my body knew before my brain. So I was like, hi. And then I was like, wait, Leanne, you do not know this person. No, don't talk to her. You do not know her. And you're like, hi. And then we're both like, oh, wait, we don't know how we know each other. And then by the end of the class, I think we had twigged that we had met at a yoga class, and I added you on Instagram. And I was going through a bad friendship breakup at the time as well. And I was like, I need to make new friends. So I think I forced myself to ask you for a coffee. Obviously, my confidence in myself had developed a bit by then. Where I was like, maybe she will want to hang out with me. And then by the end of the day, we were publishing your book on Amazon. So, and then from then on, the rest is history.
Oh my God, but that's exactly it, you know? Yeah, we published that book on Amazon, which was just so incredible. But anyway, enough about you and me for the time being, because that should be a whole other episode. Exactly. The declaration of love.
Hope you're all enjoying it.
Exactly. Together we rise as women. No, but it is really beautiful because, so often as women, we compare each other a lot. We have a tendency to feel, to not invalidate each other instead of actually get crazy excited and inspired. And you are really one of those women that I know you know this about me, but I genuinely am literally cheering for you all the time. And every single time you achieve something that's so incredible, like the incredible success of your company in like literally less than 2 years, my whole heart is not only super excited for you, but you also paved the way for everyone else, because my brain, and I have a crazy rational brain, is like, well, if she can do it, and you're someone that I can really relate to. So you're not like 30 years older than me. It's not like you came from a background that was totally different from mine. Like it's someone that I can relate to. And so whenever you succeed in whatever endeavor it is, whatever, you have an idea, I want to do this thing, and you make it happen, essentially what you're telling my brain is, hey, you too could be like me. And that is incredible. So yeah. Okay, going back to you. So book number 5, how did this book come about, Leanne? And what is it called? Tell us.
Oh, well, on the first note, what you just said there, I think like it's funny because the whole business is literally from the same exact rationale from you, because I was lucky enough to meet you at the point when I just quit my law job, and the fact you were out there being you, an energy healer and charging people money. And I was like, hello, fellow coach. Do you know how to say that you're a coach without cringing? And the fact you were charging for it, and you just helped me so, so much. So everything that I have achieved since then is thanks to you, Josie. And I always talk about that to everyone, because it is like the people around you, like what they say, if you can see it, you can be it. And this book now, the one that's going to come out, it's called AuDHD Blooming Differently, which I really actually love the title. It kind of came from my team at ADHD Works. They came up with the subtitle. And I wrote it after, so last October, I was diagnosed with autism. And I was diagnosed with ADHD about 7 years ago. And so to get this autism diagnosis, I was like, what is that? I already knew that I was autistic, so I didn't think it was going to affect me very much, but it actually really did a lot because the assessment was so intense. Like my diagnosis was 80 pages long. It was like a book. I was like, we can publish this, basically. Well, and I also found it really difficult to talk to any. You were amazing, obviously, but like many people in my life were like, you're not autistic, or like burst out laughing. So I just found it really difficult to talk to anyone, and stayed at home by myself for 10 days and wrote out my whole life and then went through it stage by stage to kind of piece out what was ADHD and what was autism and what was me, which I think is quite a common journey that people go through after a diagnosis like that. and then just wrote nonstop. And I wrote basically what help would have helped me at that time, because I work with a lot of parents and children as well, as an ADHD coach and training ADHD coaches. And I know that that is really important for the world to have, because so many people are suffering like I did as a child. And especially I feel a really big responsibility to share that story, because now if you met me, you'd be like, wow. I went to an event last night and three different people came up to me and were like, oh, I've read your book, I love you. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, thank you. But if you, I really am very aware of how social media can make it seem like, people just woke up. I'm a successful, happy human being, which I'm definitely not, but it could look like that from the outside. So I really wanted to share my experiences, and especially with these parents and their kids are going through really tough times, to help them to see that there's hope down the end. They'll figure it out and they'll be okay. That's it.
I absolutely love that. And it's such an important point. And I think this is, well, I know this is always, what I've absolutely loved about you and, this complete, genuine desire to obviously help others, but to really try to unmask yourself, like really get curious about yourself. So you're never sitting down, you're never sitting me down going, it's everyone else's fault. I'm blaming the world, I'm blaming this, I'm blaming that. But you have this incredible ability to puzzle it all, like to pick it all apart, all aspects of yourself, all aspects of your psyche, and stay in a curious spot, which most of us don't do, right? And it's also not what we're taught. So again, we're not blaming society, but in the end of the day, you bring something that is so insightful and so needed to this world, this ability. And again, a really important point, was born out of pain, wasn't born out of, oh, yay, you pee me. I woke up, whip, whip, here we go.
Diagnosis, that's right.
Exactly, diagnosis number two. Let's ride that autism wave,
No, it wasn't.
Right, exactly. But I think this is what is what is so important, and what I always am so in awe of with you. Like I know you always said about me, because you're like, Josie, you are so Josie, and but I always sit and I always really admire you, because um you always share all of you, like even the stories where other people will be like, oh no, not gonna share that story because that doesn't make me look so glamorous, and whereas I remember walking down the street with you. This is a quite juicy one, and we hadn't actually known each other that long, and you were like, yes, and then I was living in Australia, and then all of a sudden, like, I was kind of thinking about committing suicide, and then blah, and I was like, what?
I remember you then.
All right.
I'm really sorry that happened to you.
I was like, let's take a breath and just right in I know that this is a massive subject and topic that is obviously, this is your life and this is many people's life, and I too can absolutely relate to depths and in the beyond depths of emotion, right? And but for you to actually openly speak out about so many things that the majority of people are feeling or thinking or have experienced, but no one talks about it because it's not shiny, right? And how can we stay in a curious spot about all of that? So you didn't write, your book is called, that beautiful title, and then Blooming Differently, which is the one I really remember, right? But it's not calling, it's not called like diving into suicide, or like, right? You could have come at this from a lot of different angles, and yeah. So Blooming Differently.
Yeah, I'm really glad with the book. And again, you're a big part of this, Josie, because I wrote it out and then I was like, oh, as usual, I was like, oh, this could maybe help other people. And like what you said there about suicide, looks it's actually in the category of suicide books on Amazon.
Hmm.
But it's an important thing because, as you say, like I do have the ability to talk about it. And when I was feeling suicidal, I definitely didn't. It would have been absolutely like, if I think back to myself then, like 10 years ago, I could not have ever in a million years imagined that I'd be sitting here talking to you about my fifth book, about that. It was so shameful and so embarrassing. And then 7 years ago, I wrote a book about the modeling industry, and I went on Lorraine, the TV show, and they were the only ones that said to me, like, did you ever feel suicidal? And I was like, oh, yes. And I felt this really big obligation to share that, because I was like, well, I know how bad I felt, and there might be other people out there feeling that way. And I really overthought it. And ironically, they didn't even ask me about it. And then it's quite funny because I went straight back to work afterwards to my law job. And I went to this like speech workshop, and my colleague said, "Oh, Leanne's just come from Lorraine." And I was like, "Oh." And then we had to do a 5-minute speech, all of us, about any topic. And I was like, just talk about the book. And I stood up and I said, I was like, as my colleague said, I went on Lorraine this morning, and I said, but what you don't know is that 2 years ago, around this time, I was going to kill myself. And then I burst into tears and sat down, and I was like, why on earth did I just say that? So yeah, it's been a journey. And I think it was only also from like leaving my job that enabled me to feel brave enough to kind of talk about this a bit more, because I was working with so many people that were suicidal. And I do think especially with ADHD and autism, there's a much higher risk of suicide. And effectively, it's just having a brain that is so overactive and overwhelmed, and being in a world that is not catered to your needs. It can feel like an escape. And the book itself, so I kind of wrote it and I was like, right, done. We're going to publish that now, done. And then I was very fortunate to have a publisher get in touch, and they wanted to kind of, they gave me a book offer, but the book that they would have published would have been quite different. It would have taken out all of my experiences really, and it would have been more of a guide. And you, Josie, were like, no, then it's not you. And yeah, again, like we have such a special friendship and relationship where, like, the whole world will be like, oh my God, a book publisher with this amazing publisher. Like, wow, they want to publish you. And you're the one like, no, but that's not you. So, and you're right. And yeah, and so it took me a month, but then I decided to publish this one. And what I like about it, I actually had like a therapy session this week, and I just cried for an hour straight, because I was like, it's just so sad. It's not a guide to living and thriving. It's just really, really sad, like how much, how difficult it's been at times, and how, like, growing up feeling like, no one likes you, and friendships have always been so difficult, and relationships and loneliness. Oh, I'm not really selling it, but what I do like about that is that it's not like here's how to do ADHD and autism, woohoo, but it's more of just the reality, which is like, you just, over time, you can get to understand your brain, and the more that you understand it and accept it as it is, the easier life becomes. And for the most part, I would say I'm pretty happy. Well, I'm incredibly happy to have people like you in my life, and that's something that I couldn't ever have imagined like 10 years ago. So
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, and likewise. Oh,
sorry,
so
Jo.
yeah, so there's so much here.
I could cry.
Yeah, no, I think I just want to touch on, well, lots of points, but especially this point, which obviously our whole talk is inspired by today, which is the big, great open heart and the ability to feel it all, right? So, you just mentioned that this week you spent an hour crying in your therapy session, right? About, essentially the compassion and the tears that little perhaps cried in silence or in secret by herself, and I think that, oh God, I'm getting emotional too. I think that truly, honestly, all of your books are always great treasures, and all of your books always, because they come from your own lived experience. It is not just, there's no, it's wonderful researching things, but knowing something theoretically as opposed to an embodied experience, there is literally, you cannot compare those two, You speak from a combined read up, well researched, but then embodied and implemented, and then finally excremented through thorough understanding of the defragmented pieces into a puzzle. That's a very long sentence. All of your books are like that, but I think this one now, and this is, saying with all the respect, because I have not read it yet, as we both know, it is not out in the world yet. And I know you offered it on the phone, but I just cannot do it on the phone.
That's okay.
But what I do know from you is that, as you just mentioned now, this is, of course, through you sharing your experiences, people will feel inspired and empowered to know that there are, other ways to do things, and it's okay to feel how they're feeling. But I think the most important thing is actually that thing of understanding that there are other people in the world that are experiencing what they might be experiencing, so they're no longer feeling alone. And that is absolutely the greatest bridge to healing, right? So as you know, and I know, as a human being, we all long to belong. It's literally our deepest need. We need to have a feeling of belonging. And sadly, most of us, for whatever reasons, ADHD, autism, whatever it is, whatever your reasons, right? It's like most of us grow up in a world where we feel we don't belong, we are not safe, we can't fully express ourselves, we can't fully allow the world to see us with all of us, with the part of us that is excited about the life, the part of us that is scared about life, the part of us that feels overwhelmed, the part of us that is like, what the fuck is the matter with what's the point of it all? Like all of it, like that really rounded, messy rawness of being a human being. And so the fact that I know you were like, I'm not really selling the book, but I think you really are. And I think it is books like yours that I've so needed for this moment in time. And as much as I love social media, especially because we have social media these days, and like you were mentioning from the outside perspective, yes, we can go whoopee yay, but this is a wonderful story where Leanne used to feel like this, and look, yay, okay, the feelings might still be there, but but she, you have managed to fully turn your life around from that which you used to hide is now what you share about all the time. It's also how you make a living. It's like your whole life.
Very profitable.
Right, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, but it's and it's kind of that thing where it's like, your greatest fear, but also your greatest pain, your greatest that which you see as your weakness. When we allow that shadow that we've been hiding behind, when we allow that to crack and we actually step forward and we go, well, this is part of who I am. Like, to be able to get to that space requires so much bravery and so much courage. And I think there's really something in that, you are one incredibly courageous soul. And I really am just so excited to see how many people are going to benefit from this incredible book. Well, anyway, I could talk about this for a long time. I want to ask, when is it coming out? And I'm lighting a candle for your book, by the way, and for you. Yay! When is your book coming out, honey?
It should be coming out on the 17th of March by then. I love that you're lighting a candle.
Of course.
Yes. It should be coming out around the 17th of March, which is Neurodiversity Celebration Week. Hopefully it will come out before then. It's been a very quick one put together in the last few weeks of like the back end. And I think we should be having a launch party on the 19th of March, which I think will be really fun.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Can people pre-order your book on Amazon, or where can they find it?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Amazing. Oh, that's so amazing. And can I just ask you, in terms of your process, because this is again another thing that I think is so important. And especially because, like we have these words that are always out in this sphere, which is like, oh, so then how do you achieve more life-work balance and all of this? And I'm always like, I am super imbalanced. I'm always swinging from right to left.
The myth.
Right, that's exactly it. And it's like, but the more I allow myself to come home to the truth of who I am without shaming who I am, how does that resonate with you? Because I remember when you were writing the book, and I remember many a message, I still don't have time to see you. I love you. Can we meet in another week? Talk us through a little bit about your process. How do you normally, well, how did you birth this book into being?
You
Oh,
know,
and sorry, and one more thing. So about your process, but also number two, I know I asked you originally why this book, but I also want to ask why now?
yeah, thank you. So a year ago or so, I read someone else's book and they mentioned the word hyperlexic. And I was like, what is that? And then Googled it, and it means basically like a child with advanced reading and writing skills. And that was kind of my first autism thread. I already kind of knew I was autistic, but I had never really. It's hard to distinguish it from ADHD because there are a lot of overlap, etc. But I'd never really found anything that struck this like huge light bulb, like hyperlexia, because that is how I communicate. Like I can't really explain it. It's like just writing, and the words do not come from the part of my brain that thinks. I find out how I'm feeling by writing. And that is really commonly associated with autism. Anyway, so I was like, I'm going to write a book on hyperlexia. And then that kind of started the path of journey. And then when I went for the autism assessment, I was like, I'm going to write a book about autism and ADHD because I think it was actually the uncertainty of it all was really stressing me out. So I just started researching it and uh, like basically I just spent 10 days, as I mentioned, kind of I describe it like binging. Like when I went to sleep after the assessment, I couldn't sleep because I just kept having all of these memories like popping up in my head of like childhood of like sliding down the banisters and literally climbing up the walls and like my teenage years and modeling and being like, oh, is that because of this? Is that because of the autism? And realizing that actually so much of my life was like what we call masking, where you hide your symptoms. But I didn't even realize that I had been doing this for my whole life, and where everything is so carefully strategized, like every conversation, every time leave the house. I didn't even realize that I was spending so much of my life doing things I didn't want to do. Even like going out of London to go to a family gathering and things like that. Like I would just automatically go to these things. I would never think of the how much stress it caused me to go to a train station and be around all the people and get on the train and get a taxi and then be around my family and figure out what to say to them all. And um, yeah, so I just knew that I had to give myself that time to process it. And that is literally how I process it by writing it all out. And yeah, as you said there, then I just literally wrote non-stop for 10 days. I didn't stop writing. And then I got to my age now, 32, and I was like, done. Don't need to look at that again. Um, and then I kind of went around the horses. I was like, for me, so I work with a PR agency, and I told them that I was getting an autism assessment. And then they said, oh, the Telegraph want you to write an article about it. And I was like, well, this is going to be really awkward because what if I don't actually have autism? I was like, I don't think that I should write about this in the national media. And they were like, oh, it'll be fine. And then actually on the day I found out, they said, oh, the BBC London radio want to interview you about autism and ADHD. And I was like, no. I had the worst panic attack. And I also had to write another article about autism and ADHD for Women's Health. And I kept describing them separately. And then the PR person said, why aren't you using the word AuDHD? And I was like, well, it just seems a bit weird. I was like, oh, it just feels a bit like AuDHD or autism and ADHD combined in the same person. And I had kind of thought about them as two separate topics, which is how they've always been kind of described in books and research. And that is because autism and ADHD couldn't be diagnosed in the same person until 2013. So you would basically, if you were ADHD, you couldn't be autistic. That's why there's not a lot of research on people that are ADHD. Um, and I was like, oh, you're right. Oh, it's an interesting thing that's come up in my head. And I kind of just ran with it. And then I was like, oh, you know what? And after writing all of that out, I was like, ADHD and autism is much bloody worse than one of them. God, they're literally like they hide each other, like the very intense like need for rules and structure with autism is literally fighting against the ADHD part that's like, let's break all the rules. Let's mess everything up. Woohoo. And I just was like, oh my God. And so I just wanted to kind of unravel that concept and how I have to make sense of things in my head is now I understand the autism because that's where all of the books have come from. When I was diagnosed with ADHD, I literally wrote out the same thing. I was like, I would like to understand this because what I was seeing online, that was 7 years ago, wasn't really resonating. It was all about like little boys, and there was not any information on social media like there is right now.
Mm.
There was no one like me on LinkedIn of all places being like ADHD. So yeah, so I just wanted to make sense of myself, wrote it. And then especially as that Telegraph article came out, it was literally like picked up by Apple News editors as their special one. And so it came up on everyone's phone. I guess it's like the modern day version of being on the cover of the Times. Yeah, like people that I knew in Australia were sending me on their home screen, which was a very bizarre experience. Really nice that it resonated with so many people, but also a really bizarre experience to have myself because people in my life weren't necessarily like my family weren't didn't necessarily read it or like reach out and stuff. So it was a really confusing experience. And then I thought, well, I'm just gonna write a book and like, say that they can read it if they want to. And then like for the people that were like, you're not autistic. And then the more I wrote, the more I thought actually this is going to be really important for everyone, like especially these kids out there. And I really wanted to write it. I guess I think probably the biggest thing I felt after that autism assessment and writing all out was like anger because previously to then I had just blamed myself for all of the like various trauma that I've been through. And I never really thought about it, but then when I wrote it all out, I was like, actually, this is the fault of everybody else. And yes, I was vulnerable because of the autism, but it's still actually these people's, like I was taken advantage of, and the world should be different so that that doesn't happen and people like me don't fall under the rug. And so I just thought it was really important to share this book and to share my real experiences, like not a sanitized version of them. So the model manifesto, for example, is a very compared to what it could be, it is a very modeling friendly book. It's like if you want a model, here's how to do it safely. Like
I,
here's
I remember it's literally a handbook. Like it's amazing. And, as a previous model as well, I remember reading it and going, oh my God, I wish I had read this like when I first started out. Absolutely loved it and very hands-on and very practical. And like you said, you can kind of go, ooh, what do I need to know? That's the chapter. Okay. Casting systems. Yes. Dealing with agents. Contracts, absolutely. Yes. No, yeah, exactly. And anyway, back to you. So yes. So when you
But
first
yeah,
read,
like
sorry.
that book, as you described that, I think that was my way of kind of processing modeling at the time because it was such a huge thing to even publish that book. It was felt very like terrifying. I didn't want to upset anyone or annoy anyone. I was still in a very much conditioned mode of like model. And so I was really surprised when it was on the cover of the Times and when all of those amazing things happened after publishing it because first of all, everyone told me no one would care about models because they're jealous of them. I was like, right. And I was like, well, I'm just publishing it because it needs to be out there for models. And second of all, because they're just, yeah, like in my view, what I shared wasn't that bad, but I only realized it was bad when this journalist was interviewing me from the Times, and she was like, so you had two men getting you changed when you were 13 years old? And I was like, yeah, like on every job, and people taking photos of us backstage, changing, etc. So this book, the AuDHD one, is a lot more angry and honest. That one is the follow-up to Model Manifesto, which is like, hey, I was trafficked. Like, fuck. Like, I had all these insane things happen to me, and like they shouldn't have happened to me. It's a result of an industry with, that literally gets children into it on purpose because of how vulnerable they are. So it's kind of like through the lens of my life and very honest. And I think that was a book I needed to write just to kind of make peace with a lot of these different aspects and things that have happened. But yeah, it's not the most cheery book I've ever read. Hopefully it's helpful.
No, I know, but I mean, like I keep saying, you know, like to love is crazy courageous, and to love oneself enough and to love humanity enough to write courageously, honestly, you know, with full honesty is so needed. And I also think that piece of like how you're mentioning, you know, the anger that essentially that wasn't expressed, but it didn't go away, right? It was in the body. It was in the body. It was stuck in the body. That's what we know as a trauma. Yay! Right?
Trauma.
Right. That impacts all of our decision. Just totally subconscious about most of it, right? But you know, like to allow Leanne at 13 to finally have a voice, to allow Leanne at 6 to have a voice, right? You know, these are such important aspects. I mean, it's what I work with in myself and within all of my clients, like all the time, you know, also what is in psychology is known as our shadow sides or our inner children, not one, but many. Basically a kindergarten in my heart, right? But like how beautiful, you know, and I think like this is something I really love about you. It's you said this once. I can't exactly remember what you said, but you said something along the lines of, it wasn't in the world, but the world needs it, so I made it. You know, and I just loved it, and I loved it about you, and I think that's also why you and I resonate so much, because it's that thing of like you and I will never sit and go like, oh, all these things are wrong in the world. We'll be like, oh, okay, this is wrong. This is what we're gonna do about it. It's not just like, oh, everything is terrible. It's like, no, this was really bad, but because it was really bad, we are going to change it, at least in whichever way we can, you know. And that is also how we change the story around from, you know, victim to heroine. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Leanne, I want to ask you a question. So for anyone who's listening right now, because you know me, I always believe, and I know you believe this too, like you come across whatever it is you need to hear at the perfect time, at the perfect place. So whoever is listening to this at any moment in time, whether it's on Valentine's Day or some gorgeous date out in the future and wherever they're finding themselves in life, what would be the message from you to them?
Oh, you're not broken. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with the way that your brain works. It is your environment, and if you are in an environment that is making you feel limited, I always use the example of Josie. If you put Josie in an office, she would not last very long. And she shouldn't. She would be a dead flower. She would not be thriving. But Josie here and her podcast, sharing her love and energy and light and just being her, she's amazing. And if you think like the same Taylor Swift, if Taylor Swift was in an office, I don't think she'd be having a great life. And that's not to say offices are bad places, but some people belong in different places and not what the world says they should be doing. But that being said, if we are not one of those people in the right flower fields that we need to be in, then it can feel like we are the problem and there's something wrong with us. And that's definitely how I felt. I felt like I was a fish going the wrong way in an ocean filled with fish that were all swimming the opposite way to me. Like for like 5 years, I would wake up every day and be like, what am I doing with my life? What do I do with my life? Who am I? And you know, it was only for going through extreme pain and literally almost taking my own life that I've ended up in this position where I'm like, oh, actually, there is no point to life. The point of life is to enjoy it. We're not sent here with like a guidebook and a checklist to tick off of marriage and children and job and dog. We're just here to have a nice time and to meet people like you, Josie, and come across podcasts like this and hear things that inspire us and to realize like you genuinely can do anything that you put your mind to. And I know that sounds really like rich coming from me as a 5 times author, but it's true. Like, and what Josie said, if I can do all of the things that I have done, literally anybody in the world can do them, like anyone. And I know, yes, I might have like a law degree and etc., but like that was not useful. The only things that have helped me to do this have been through basically deciding to die and then realizing, like, during that week, I had a really great week because I was like, well, I'm going to die on Saturday, so I can eat whatever I want today. And I was like, because I'm going to be dead next week. So, and I'd eat chocolate and almond croissants. And then I saw my friends and I was like, I better see them and say goodbye to them. And I had a lovely time with my friends. And then I was like, walk by the ocean. I was like, oh, wow, it's so pretty. And then I was like, oh, wait.
Mm.
Oh, oh. And I was like, this has completely invalidated my beliefs that the world is evil and everyone's horrible and everyone hates me. Like, I'm having a really great week eating chocolate almond croissants, walking along the ocean with my friends. Like, um, and I think it's that, and obviously not advocating that as a kind of mental health strategy. But I would say just taking all of that pressure off you and trusting that you will figure it out. And if you're going through a bad time right now, you're not alone and you're not broken. Like so many people right now are in exactly the same boat as you, but most people just don't talk about it. And also, I would like to finish this off by saying the only reason that I can talk about it is probably because I'm much less fortunate than whoever is listening to this, because, I don't have people around me that necessarily kind of care. Right. I think, for example, if I had children, I think it would be a lot harder to share these kinds of experiences. Or if I was married, I would have to think about that person. Unfortunately, single, so do what I want. If I had parents around me that were really like, yeah, I'm very grateful to my parents as they are for kind of allowing me to write whatever I want and share it with the world, and they don't take it too personally. But at the same time, they're really not there being like, no, you can't say that. And that is if you are surrounded by people like that, then in one way it does mean that they care about you, and they care about the impact that different things might have in your life. And that is a gift. And I've coached a lot of people and trained a lot of coaches. And the one thing that I can say above all of it is that what everyone is trying to get to, the magic, happy place that lies at the end of TED Talks and being a millionaire, is belonging, what you said earlier. Like having people who care about you and feeling loved for who you are, not what you do. So if you find yourself comparing yourself to me, please don't. Um, or Josie. She is a magical human being, but no one is like a perfect person with everything together. And our society likes to put people on pedestals if they look a certain way or present a certain way, but like actually we're all just as worthy and valuable as each other.
Oh my God, 100%. And I'm just gonna like potter along here with you and just go, you
Over
know,
to you.
yeah, well, I'm just like how, just like sailing with you in the ship, or being the fish with you against all the other fishes. I don't actually really care as
Yes,
long
I
as we're
found my friend.
together. Do you know what I mean? But you're so right, and I love just this whole thing of like, no matter how together the world can look, or how together and how worked out certain people may look or may appear in your life, everyone is not only doing the best that they can with the tools that they have and the wisdom that they have at that moment in time, but also we are all just fumbling along in the dark.
Yeah,
A
I'm on this
hundred,
spinning rock.
100%,
I don't know how I woke up today. Like,
right.
none of us know what magic is coming, like making the human being heart pump and stay here and talk,
Right.
share, and do what we do. We're just figuring out. We're just
A
we're
hundred
picking
percent,
it up.
100%. And I want to just like dive in a little bit. And this is not, I'm not asking you to like, oh, really share your heart about that experience. But I think there's something so pivotal in that moment where you had made that decision in Australia, and you had the decision that, okay, Saturday is going to be the day, right? But my point is, if we can just, and again, health and safety, we're not using this as a strategy, as a guidance for like, hey, if you're dealing with depression or severe anxiety or thinking of taking your own life, do like this. That is not what we're doing right now. No, we're not doing this right now. Okay, what we are, exactly, what we are doing is there is something something pivoted within you, and I see it time and time and time and time again. I see it in myself and I see it in others, and now also in your story, where you finally kind of came to the point of no return, literally, but also in the point of, yeah, I know this is a dark humor, but I am Danish, so please forgive me. But you came to the point where you allowed yourself to think the thought, make the plan to the very end, literally. But you see what I'm saying? Because usually in life, whatever it is we are not wanting to see or face, we just push it away, right? We mask it not just for others, but even within ourselves, because we're really clever that, you know, we have the ability within our psyche to go, oh no, now that scary thought is coming, or that kind of, that scenario. No, we push it away, right? But in that moment, you fully allowed yourself to not only think the thought, but you executed the thought, and you gave it a deadline. And oh my God, there's so many bad black jokes in here. But anyway, you gave it a...
I have ADHD, not for the following.
But my point is, you allowed yourself to, you gave yourself full permission, even to go, okay, you know what? That's what I'm gonna do, right? And in doing so, in allowing an aspect within yourself, and I mean, I'm really just exploring this with you, but by allowing yourself an aspect of yourself that wanted this, and of course wanted this as in like saw no other way out. I get that. It's not a fun spot.
No, I really would.
I know it's really not a fun spot.
How do we turn the brain off?
Right, I get that. But
where is the off switch?
But the interesting thing was, instead of switching off, which is what you would have done previously, like, no, I'm not going to go into that thought pattern. For once, you were like, I'm going to invite it in. And so the pivotal point actually came from you going, okay, I'm just going to think it all the way to the end. And I know you had also put your action plan and all of that. And then you went out, and because you had given yourself full permission to be fully you.
Exactly.
Somehow something changed, right? Which is wild. And so, you know, we could apply just that thing of giving yourself a permission slip, wink, wink, in any area of your life. And I'm not, you know, as I mentioned, health and safety, please seek your gorgeous psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever it is. You go and see a friend, get a hug, whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever it is you need, like, you know, but in other aspects, you know, whatever it is you are thinking and feeling, instead of immediately shutting it down, giving yourself full permission. And then through doing that, you were actually able to create some space between that which was essentially scaring you and frightening you, and then a sense of identity where you realized, well, you had the thought, but you are not your thought. You had the emotion, but you're not the emotion. A space was created, and I think that took place through giving yourself, allowing yourself full permission to think things through, to feel things through, and then yet discover that there was a part of you that wasn't your thoughts and wasn't your emotions. And that created the freedom and the space just long enough for you to realize that, hey, there's still some good stuff here in this life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yay. Leanne, I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much. It is, as I said, I started out with a love declaration. I will finish on a love declaration. The world is a better place because of you, and I cannot wait to read your book, Blooming Differently. And I'm already excited about the next one because I know there will be a next one.
Thank you, Josie, and likewise. Lots and lots of love. Thank you. And yeah, AuDHD, Blooming Differently.
Exactly. You will have all of the details about gorgeous Leanne and her beautiful book number 5 in the show notes. And yeah, see you on the other side.
Thank you.
I'm just going to stop the recording.